So once you've done your test and you've got all your stuff, all your data, that means your numbers, your measurements. Let's say we're talking about Hudson's Find Her. You have the length of her hair for all those different tests. What do you notice about it? That's the most important thing. You got to take your data and you usually have to graph it out and see, what do I notice when I graph? Did anything happen? And what does that mean? What do these numbers really mean? That's the important thing, because you want to be able to come up with a conclusion. What does that mean? And did it answer your question? And were you right? You really want to know, was I right in my hypothesis or was I wrong? So that's the whole idea about arriving at your conclusion. So let's see what conclusion Jennifer Hudson came to. So she has, one thing I want to note first is I made a mistake. I put lemon here and that should be tomato. Okay? So this should not say lemon, it should say tomato. All right, VO5, mango, and tomato. So she has her graph here. Now let's look at this for a moment. I know that the blue ones, that's my VO5. She used that in month 1. And I see she always started with hair length of 10 inches. So her hair was at 10 inches to start with. And I see here, it looks like it went up to here, the blue one. You can't see it because it's covered by the red. But if you keep on going, you see that the blue stays about, this looks like 11 to me. So it didn't look like the hair really changed so much between all the weeks in 1 month. Now let's look at mango. Mango went from 10 inches to 11 to 12, and then it just leveled off to 12. Okay, so that was mango. And then the last one that I really want to look at, the one that's the highest above, is the tomato. Remember, I made a mistake there. That was tomato. So tomato went from 10 to 12 right away, stayed at 12 for a little bit, but then jumped up to 14 inches. So what does this tell me? I know that VO5, the usual one, really didn't make my hair grow all that much. Mango helped a little bit, but the best guy for me is actually tomato. Okay? So this green guy, tomato, remember? Made the mistake. Tomato is what I wanted to know. So the hypothesis was wrong because tomato increased the length of hair more than the other hair products. So the hairstylist, even though he has experience, maybe he's not the smartest guy in the world. Okay? Now, this is where we talk about these cells. Alright? Cells are what life is made of. Everything that is alive is made of cells. And so we really got to talk about these things because these are central to biology. Alright? What we're going to really focus on are the parts of the cell. And the parts of the cell are called organelles. And I underline this part because you can kind of think of the parts of the cell kind of like the organs of the living cell, like the organs in your body. So they all have different functions. Like you might have a brain, and you have a heart, maybe you're heartless, like Kanye West says. But yeah, so you have a heart and a brain, and so those are like your organs. Cells have other organs. And so we need to know what these organs do, or what these parts of the cells do, these organelles. Okay? So let's go on and figure out what's inside of the cell and what makes up the cell. All cells have the following organelles. Alright, let's look at the organelles that all cells have. All cells have a cell membrane. And what a membrane is, I know this is a small picture, but the membrane is the outer layer. So it's like the skin of the cell. So think of it kind of like your skin, your outer layer. It's the outer layer of the cell, and you can kind of think of it like a bouncer. Okay, and the reason why I think of it like a bouncer is because the outer layer, just like your skin, doesn't let everything in. Some things can come in, but not all. And so it only allows certain things in and out of the cell. That's the major function of the cell membrane. To let some things in and to say, hold on, wait a minute, shorty, can't get in. So some things can come in, some things cannot. Now, how are you going to remember this? This is how I remember it. You can make fun of me, that's fine, I don't care. But this is how I remember it. So when you're taking the HSA, maybe this will help. I remember insane in the membrane. I don't have much tune to me, but if I remember that, I know that the word in is an insane, and so that's always going to remember. Insane in the membrane, some things can come in, some things cannot. So I'll remember it allows some things in, but it doesn't let other things in. So that's how I remember what the membrane does. Okay? Let's see what else all cells have. So we know that all cells have a cell membrane. The next thing all cells must have is something called a cytoplasm. And I'll explain what that is. It's pretty simple. It's the liquid-like substance inside of the membrane. So inside of all of us right now, inside my skin, we all know is blood. Okay? So just like a cell has this stuff in it, this liquid-like substance that we call cytoplasm, it's like the blood in our body. So just the stuff that's in there, the liquid that's in there, the liquid-like substance, that's your cytoplasm. And so how are you going to remember that? the way I remember it is I look at the part of the word plasm there, and cytoplasm, and I know that in my blood, I've heard of this before, and I've either given blood or I've heard somebody talk about it like a doctor, that blood is made of plasma. Okay, it's this yellowish liquid part of the blood that gets separated by doctors if you ever get your blood taken, right? And so I remember plasma, and I'm like, wait, blood is kind of like the liquid inside of me, and I know the skin's on the outside, so I remember that the cytoplasm is that liquid-like stuff in the inside of the cell. So if you remember here, your membrane's on the outside, like your skin, the inside is your cytoplasm, the red. All right, so we know so far, we got all cells have cell membranes, we know all cells have the cytoplasm. Well, there's something else that's in the cell, something called a ribosome, okay? And so ribosomes, what they do, their main job in the cell is to make these proteins, okay? So they make proteins, and that's all you need to know. That's the major thing you need to know about ribosomes. They make proteins, okay? Now, how are you going to remember? The way you will remember, how I remember, is I love to eat. So I know that my ribs, when I eat them, have protein in them. I know that meat has lots of protein, and I know ribs are meat. So I like to think of ribs, it's very, very good. And I'll always remember that meats have protein, so I know ribosomes must make that protein. So that's the strategy that I use to remember that ribosomes make my proteins. All right, next. So we talked about how all cells have a cell membrane, a cytoplasm, the liquid-like substance inside, and these ribosomes that make the proteins. Now we need to learn about the two major types of cells. One major type is called a prokaryote. The other major type is eukaryote. And you see how I underlined both parts of the word there, and there's a reason why. First, let me